Good morning, everybody. Brian Westrate, who is currently running to be the next state senator for Wisconsin's the 23rd district, which serves counties in west central Wisconsin. Brian, I got to ask about that because I don't even know which counties those are. Brian is our very special guest today, Friday, April 29th, 2022. This is our last show of the month, being the end of April here, so I just wanted to say a special thank you to all of our guests that we have had on this month, including Barron County Sheriff Chris Fitzgerald, of course, for our Positive Tuesday with Ben and Fitzy shows, candidate for Wisconsin, Attorney General Adam Jarkow, Polk County Sheriff Walk, St. Croix County Sheriff Knutson, independent candidate for Wisconsin Governor Joan Beglinger, Ford Analytics Director Dale Knapp, Ignite Dispensary CEO, and good friend of ours, Timothy Fry, candidate for Wisconsin's 25th Senate seat, Romaine Quinn, and yesterday, candidate for Wisconsin Lieutenant Governor Will Martin joined us. You can watch a recording of all of those shows and every one of our shows on our website at DrydenWire.com, on our Facebook page right here on Facebook, just under the videos tab, or it might just be easier, just go to our YouTube channel. That's kind of where we store all of them, youtube.com/DrydenWire. But today we're chatting with candidate for Wisconsin's 23rd District Senate seat, Brian Westrate. Brian, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. This is great. No kidding. Last week when Romaine was on, he was asking about the guests that were coming up, and I said a few, and then I said, and Brian Westrate. And he was, oh, that'll be interesting. I said, yeah, I feel badly because I can't remember what he's running for, if he's a Republican or Democrat. Like, I didn't know, so I actually had to kind of go look this morning and snoop on your website. But first, I got to ask you, did you watch any of the NFL draft last night?
I did not. Yeah, I mean, I'm a sports fan, but I have a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old who play three sports in addition to running my own business and now running for the state senate. So as much as I would love to have had time to sit down and watch some TV, I just haven't.
All right. Yeah, I fell asleep after like the first 10 picks. I go to bed early. But Fitzy and I...
So you missed the Packers.
Yeah, I missed everybody, which is fine. Our family's from Chicago, so we're Bears fans.
It's nice being on the show with you, Lady Ben.
Yeah, yeah. So Fitzy, I sent him a message last night and it said over under 4 in terms of trades for the first round. He goes, oh, under, totally under. I'm like, I want to go over on that one. So I fell asleep after the 10th pick, and there's no trades at that point. And this morning I woke up and I saw that there were 9 after that. So should have bet money on that one.
Did you see that there was some? I think it was Fox or Pepsi, maybe somebody. Hey, good morning, Romaine. Somebody offered, it's like $6 million if you got every pick from pick 1 through the last pick of the first, I think even just the first round or something like that.
Yeah, first round was just yesterday, but there's no way anybody would have gotten that right.
Yeah, right. Well, which is it kind of displayed in how much money they were offering if you managed to do it.
That's true.
Right?
Right.
I mean,
there's a reason casinos are gigantic. It's not because they're losing money, folks.
Right. Why the hole in one in the golf outing you go to every year, there's a truck if you win if you get it.
Yeah. All right. So for the people who don't know you, Brian, tell us a little bit about you. So
I'm from Eau Claire, born and raised in Eau Claire. Married my high school sweetheart, born and raised in Eau Claire on a farm just south of town as well. My dad was a small businessman. Folks moved to the area in the mid-'70s. My dad was a personnel director for the paper mill here in town, and my mom was a school teacher. She spent the last 22 years of her career teaching high school English and civics and junior high English and civics in Elk Mound. And went to college at Bethel College in St. Paul, where I got a business and political science degree, minor in communications and small business management, and moved home. My high school sweetheart again, Beth, who is my wife, went to the University of Minnesota, where she got a teaching degree. Mm-hmm. She is a public school teacher here in the Eau Claire schools. And we live in Fall Creek now, which is just 9 miles east of Eau Claire, a town of about 1,200 people. We moved out there 11 years ago. Wanted to get into the Fall Creek School District and just a smaller community. Also, I'm an avid sportsman. If it flies, floats, jumps, hops, swims, or whatever, I try and take it when it's in season. And so we moved on to some land out there. We've got 40 acres. And as I say, we've got a 13-year-old son, a 15-year-old daughter, both of whom play 3 sports. And so we love to be in the woods. We love to be on a field of one form or another. We love watching our kids do what they do. And again, they don't do it for us. We tell them at the beginning of every season, You are doing this for you. We just want to be together as a family. And if that's on the boat, on the water, on a beach, or at a picnic, or at home reading a book, playing a game, we don't care. But if you start a season, you're going to finish the season because these are team sports, right?
Right.
And so far, they've really loved being athletes. And in the town we live in, athletics matters. Student athletics matters to the community. Because again, we're a small community between Eau Claire and Augusta, and so kind of what we have to export are our kids, right? And so as a community, I think we really come around the schools, we come around the kids, and it's one of the reasons why we love living there in this small rural Wisconsin, is because the community watches out for everybody. So it's hard for a kid to go too far off the rails because there's so many eyes watching what they do.
Yep.
So I started a business in 2000 doing continuing education seminars all across the country. We did 12,000 seminars over the course of 17 years.
So hold on a second. So what do you do? Like, you go to a seminar, but what is it about?
So what we did is we organized all aspects of them. So let's say we were going to hold, they all had to do with the law. So let's say we were going to hold an employment law program in Cleveland, Ohio. We would contact speakers in the Cleveland area, get speakers to cover an agenda for employment law, and they're almost universally attorneys. Then we would get a meeting facility, almost always at a hotel in Cleveland. Then we would put together a manual specific to that program, and we would ship the manual and a recording device, because we recorded all of our programs, because we would sell the digital recordings on the back end. And then the attendees would obviously go. We had a national contract with Manpower and Kelly Services at different times. So we would have an on-site coordinator who would open the box, distribute the materials, sign in our customers, welcome the guests, do all that sort of thing. So that's what I did for 17 years. Coming out of the 2016-17, the marketplace had moved past live programming. Folks are perfectly happy living on their devices, including me, as it turns out. And so I shut that business down, didn't go bankrupt. All of my vendors were paid. My employees had different jobs, oftentimes better paying, whether they liked them or not. When they left me, all of my customers' money was earned by the time I shut down. So I shut down, as opposed to, because I think I see so often, you'll see small business owners who, rightly so, it's their baby, right? And you hold on past the point of making it so that no one else pays the price for your decision, right? So I didn't want to do that. So then in 2018, I started a small insurance agency. It's just me and my black lab here in the office. She's around here somewhere on a comfortable bed, I would think. And I've been doing that ever since 2018. So it's a independent agency, personal property casualty, personal and commercial. And so that's what I've been doing since then. And just living the middle class dream.
Sure. And then, so of course that was in 2018. Yep. How did COVID, out of curiosity, affect, if you don't mind?
No,
getting into that?
Very little. Very little when it comes to the insurance industry.
Sure.
So it definitely impacted the insurance industry, right? Because we're still trying to figure out how things get priced, as a result of the inflation that I would argue is as a direct result of COVID policies put in place during the pandemic. But from a customer perspective, insurance, to a large extent, is done over the phone and online these days. I mean, for the very reason my seminar company went out of business, right? Is people just don't want to have to go places. It's why Amazon is now the largest, one of the largest companies in the world, and all the rest of it. And Twitter is apparently worth $54 million or billion dollars, right? It's because people just don't want to go places. They don't want to walk into offices. So to that extent, it didn't have a huge impact on my business, and I think on from a customer's perspective, on the industry as a whole. What we are seeing, as I say, though, is, for instance, autos have the average price of a used car has gone up, I think, 41% in the last year, right? So now you've got an insurance company that they wrote Ben an insurance policy last year on his 2017 F-150, and they priced it based upon the value of the 2017 F-150 at the time. Because if Ben crashes it and totals it, they're going to have to replace his 2017 F-150. Fast forward to this year, it's now worth 41% more than it was last year. They're going to have to figure out, well, we can't charge Ben 41% more, but we have to increase the rate. And again, the law of large numbers is how insurance works. It has to be amortized over a large population of people and clients. And so the industry is figuring that out. And that's why if you've seen your personal insurance costs go up, It's because your home is now worth on average 27% more than it was, and
Interesting.
your vehicles are on average worth 40% more than they were. And so those are the two main things that plus your life are kind of the three things that the average American will insure.
Your
And
life.
so that's why you're going to see, yeah, that's why you're going to see rates
Has
go
the
up.
has the value of life gone up yet?
Well, unfortunately not, because
Yeah, okay.
I would argue abortion is still legal. So we still apparently don't value life the way I would like us to.
Well, hey, that's perfect because not quite yet, but that was almost a perfect timing segue. I went to your website this morning, as Ed mentioned, and I saw you had several bullet point priorities. I want to get to that, but first, so now your insurance, and you decide when I'm running for Senate. And by the way, what counties does that represent? The 23rd Senate District.
Yeah, so the 23rd, it has all of Chippewa County, all of Clark County, a huge portion of Eau Claire County, okay, but it doesn't include the city of Eau Claire and like the southwestern corner of Eau
Okay.
Claire County. That
Mhm.
goes into the 31st Senate District, which is currently Jeff Smith.
Okay.
And there's a gentleman named Dave Estenson who's running for that on the Republican side.
Okay.
And then you've got the city of Black River Falls and three townships in Jackson County. You've got three townships on the eastern edge of Dunn County. You've got in Marathon County, you have the cities of Abbotsford, Colby, and Marshfield, and then a few townships. And then in Wood County, you've got the city of Marshfield.
Got it. And
So
who is currently, as you can
Kathy
tell, I
Bernier.
don't really prepare for these shows. I really should.
No,
See, but it's
that's
all
great.
about it's managing expectations. Don't expect a lot on these shows, and you won't be disappointed. Who is the current 23rd Senate senator?
Yeah, so Kathy Bernier is,
Oh,
and she's from Chippewa County.
sure.
Yep.
And she announced that she wasn't right.
Yeah, so I mean, just briefly, I think my political history. It sounds like maybe where we're headed. Um, I again have a business political science degree. I've been a constitutional conservative since I was 10 years old. I grew up in a home. My folks got divorced when I was 3, but still lived. Both continued to live in Eau Claire. And my father, at his house, we didn't have television, and we talked about faith, business, and politics. Pretty much the three things you're not supposed to talk about in polite company, right?
Right.
And so, growing up before talk radio, my dad listened to Wisconsin Public Radio, 88.3 WHWC, Menominee, Eau Claire, with talk about issues that matters to you. We used to drive, he'd drive me to school or to practice or whatever, and it would be, he had this saying, friends don't let friends listen to FM. So,
I love it.
and then Rush came out in the early
Oh,
90s, and
sure.
I mean, so I was a Rush kid, not a Rush baby, because I wasn't a baby at that point. But and so this is just, my dad has a master's degree in economics, and he's an Austrian economist, which for those who know, follower of Murray Rothbard and Lou Rockwell, and that side of the economic spectrum. And so my older brother went to Hillsdale College, which I think most people will recognize if you're on the right, with Imprimis, the flyer they send out. And he got a political economy degree. He's now a professor at Villanova, an assistant vice provost or something.
Wow.
And so just a bit of political kind of being my whole life. And what I mean by being is just that I'm thinking about it. We talk about it. I read about it. I love American history. Again, my mom was a history teacher. So with my mom, our family vacations were to Gettysburg and to Jonestown and to Boston and to Philly, historical places. And so this is just something that it's just part of who I am. It's who God made me to be. I mean, one of the jokes I'll tell kind of is that, God gave me a skill set to either be a televangelist or be involved in politics, and I'm not a televangelist. I mean, it's just who he made me. And I believe that we need men and women of faith in positions in government. If you're guided by truth, I think you're going to make a better statesman. I don't like the word politician, but you're going to make a better statesman. You're going to make a better public servant in office. And so move home from college in 2000, get married in June, graduate in May, get married in June, start my business in July. And that year, that summer and fall I made my first phone calls for George Bush for president. And then in 2004, we gave the Republican Party of Wisconsin some space in the building that my business was in. 2006, I served as the Eau Claire County chairman for the McCain campaign. Again, not a huge fan of John McCain. When he passed away, I stayed silent, because if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. But it was him or Barack Obama. at the time. And I knew that, well, he might be a nice guy. Barack Obama's policies were not in line with what I believe is best for the nation. Then in 2006, I got in the Eau Claire County Republican Party committee, and I served on there. In 2009, I became the Eau Claire County Republican Party chairman, and then I served in that role for 4 years, which included Act 10, which was a crazy time to be in politics. So if you may remember, in 2009, the Democrat Party was dancing on the grave of the Republican Party. The media, the Republicans were dead. We were not going to have any power for decades. Barack Obama had taken the White House. He had swept both houses of Congress here in Wisconsin. Jim Doyle was governor. They had taken both the Assembly and the Senate, lockstep. And we were done. It was over. Well, fast forward, obviously, 2010, Governor Walker gets elected. We retake both the Assembly and the state Senate. We retake the House and the Senate at the national level, and that's the environment I became chairman. And then under Act 10, I remember I had taken my wife on a 10-year anniversary trip. I think it was our 11th year, but I'd taken her on a 10-year anniversary trip, and we're flying home, and we're at SeaTac Airport in Washington. It's like 6 o'clock in the morning out there, 8 o'clock in the morning here. And I get my first phone call. This is the Monday after Act 10 dropped, the Friday before. And so at the time, the party's number came directly to my cell phone, because what had happened was we had a voicemail, and people would leave a voicemail, and I wouldn't check it often enough. So I'd go in and check a voicemail, and somebody had a problem a week ago, and I was too late to help. Right. So I just finally had the party's number routed to my personal cell phone. And so I get this phone call 8 o'clock in the morning our time here. Hello, this is Brian. Oh, I'm sorry. I got the wrong number. No problem. He calls back. Hello, this is Brian. I'm sorry. I said, sir, are you looking for the Republican Party? Yeah, I am. Oh, well, you've got him. How can I help? You're all a bunch of effing idiots. And he didn't say effing. He said the full word.
Sure.
And he was married to a teacher in Augusta. And just, so that's how my Act 10 era started out. And
what does your wife do for a living again?
She's a teacher.
Right. So how does that work?
Well, she's a conservative, as was my mom. Sure. But to your point, I have nothing but respect, admiration, and love for teachers and the process of education. Thanks, Clint.
Yeah.
My grandmother was a principal in Lansing, Michigan. My aunt is a teacher. My cousin's a teacher. My brother is a teacher at the collegiate level, but he's a teacher. And so I love the profession and the incredibly hard jobs that they do. We are increasingly giving teachers broken children from broken homes, and not only asking them to teach them, but to fix them. Okay, but the fact of the matter is, under Act 10, we're in the worst recession in our lifetime. We might be headed into the second worst recession in our lifetime, but at the time, the worst recession in our lifetime, the state government was $3.6 billion upside down, and we had to do something. And it worked. We've saved something like $15 billion since then. And I'll never forget, I'd be sitting at gun shows and whatnot at the time, and we'd have private union guys, IBEW, construction locals would come, and they would sign the thank you card to Governor Walker that we had. And what they talked about is, like, look, we have been giving concessions for the last 2 years in order to keep our jobs, in order to keep all the guys and gals working. Why do these public sector union people think they don't have to pay any part of the price during the worst recession in our lifetime, right? So at the time, Assembly Speaker Jeff Fitzgerald, and Majority Leader Scott Fitzgerald in the Senate told their caucuses, don't do media. So as a local county chairman in one of Wisconsin's media markets, I was doing media 2, 3, 4 times a week. And it was me and the Democrat Assembly person, or me and the Democrat state, Kathleen Vinehout, or Kristen Dexter, or Jeff Smith. And so that was an interesting time to be a chairman. Then moving forward in 2013, I became the 3rd District County Chairman. And so again, the party goes from county to district to state. And again, it's elected. You get elected by the representatives from in this case, 18 counties that comprise the 3rd Congressional District. And that put me on the State Executive Committee. And so I served in that role from 13 till 18. And that included in 16, I was one of Wisconsin's 10 presidential electors for Donald Trump. I was also a national delegate to the 2016 RNC convention out in Cleveland. Which was fascinating.
Yeah. Real quick, so Larry, I did see your message. We're just not up to that point yet. We're getting to some of the priorities and what he's looking for, but right now we're just trying to get caught up. So I apologize.
Thank
Go ahead,
you, Larry. Absolutely. And so at any rate, then in 2018, I became the treasurer for the state party, and I'm still on the executive committee in that
Wow.
role. And so that's just kind of my political. And
So
again, all of
politics has
those are
been a
volunteer.
part of, you were in the other business before from 2000 to 2017, and then now in insurance, but obviously you've been a part of the system and politics. I don't know if system's the right word, but politics
Yeah,
certainly, and a passion for that, and not just a passion, but a lot of involvement
right.
in
And that's
politics.
really the key. Is I mean, I have given a lot of my time, talent, and treasure year after year to get conservatives, ideally, conservative Republicans elected to office at the local, state, federal level. I mean, I
Sure.
ran my dad for the school board here twice in Eau Claire. A 2009 Leader Telegram article, which is our daily paper,
Mhm.
said that I had made local elections partisan because I ran a write-in candidate against a literal socialist who was on our city council. So I've been doing this a long time. I share that only because it's all grassroots. It's all grassroots activism. And yes, it's within the Republican Party, but we are a two-party system. And as it stands, if you want to elect a conservative to office, they're going to have an R after their name.
Yeah.
And so
Hmm.
it's what God called me to do, and I think that it matters. I really do.
So when did you make the decision to run? You've kind of been I wouldn't say behind the scenes, but
Yeah,
not at the state level in terms of, well, you've never run for something like this, assembly,
right,
senate,
right.
etc. You've run for other things and been in those positions. Was this just like the natural progression? Is insurance going really poorly? And I'm like, I got to do something. What made you
No,
decide that's it?
no,
Like, you just wake up one day and said, I know what I'm doing.
no. So the last 2 years in this state and in this nation are what finally, and I felt God's call to it, but finally pushed me into running for the state senate. So I've known Kathy Bernier as a friend, has been for 12 years. I've helped her win elections. I have pictures of my kids driving our golf cart in the Augusta Bean and Bacon Days parade with a Bernier for Assembly sign on the front of it. And I knew she was going to retire. Everybody knew
Hmm.
she was going to retire. And the last 2 years, so we have a governor that violated the First Amendment to the United States Constitution in the most egregious way possible when he told pastors they couldn't open their doors and parishioners they couldn't go to church. And not only did he do that, he also violated the Constitution in the most egregious way possible when he told people, your small business is essential, your small business isn't. Now, again, I'm a small businessman for the last 22 years, son of a small businessman. There was a point in my business where I wasn't personally making any money, and I had $76,000 of credit card debt on top of my head that was spent for the business. When my wife was 8 months pregnant with our daughter, my production person quit. And I remember my wife and I were the upstairs in my office in the production area. My wife was running the folding machine. I was running the labeling machine. It was 9 o'clock at night. Okay, that's what small business people do.
That's right.
They put their heart and their soul and often their financial security into their small business. They take out a second mortgage on their home. They take money out of the kids' college funds. They tap their 401k. And we had a governor who said, nope, sorry, your dream is dead because I say so. Walmart, Menards, big companies, Kohl's, they can stay open because somehow buying a pair of culottes is essential, but not getting your hair cut.
What is
And
a
so
culotte?
I don't know. It's a piece of clothing.
Okay,
but
sorry.
so
That apparently was essential.
right, exactly. And, so the first black market thing I ever purchased in my life, other than I think maybe a switchblade that my brother brought me back from overseas, was it was getting a black market haircut from a buddy's dad who was a barber at one point.
Sure.
Um, and so seeing that and seeing the speed, so I've always known that socialist progressives were going to seek power. The speed with which they were able to gather it and exert it was shocking to me. And here's what we heard out of Madison when that happened. Are you ready, Ben?
Hmm.
That's what we heard.
Oh.
Nothing.
I'm like, what, did you
Crickets.
just freeze? Because it feels like a Tom
No,
Tiffany episode where it always freezes.
right? That's what we heard. I personally know at least half of the Republican legislators down in Madison. And I remember at one point in March of 2020, I tagged them all and I said, guys, if not now, when? Why have we been helping you gather power? Why have we been consistently? Why have I been spending thousands of dollars in time, talent, and treasure every year helping you win elections? If when we need you most, nothing happens. What could be more egregious than violating the First Amendment to the United States Constitution? I mean, a similar action would be to say to someone who's preaching in this town square, sorry, you can't speak. or going into someone's home and taking their gun. They're just an egregious violation of the Constitution is telling a pastor they can't open their doors. Mm. And nobody did anything about it. Okay, now I know they don't have a magic wand, but one thing they could have done is they had the ability in a joint session of legislature to overturn his declaration of emergency. And we've heard reasons why they think they shouldn't have. And well, if they had, Speaker Voss, who was a friend, would say, well, if we had, then he would have just declared another one. Okay, then overturn that one too, and then overturn the next one, and overturn, and at the same time file that lawsuit concurrently. But here's the thing: I get emails from a lot of assembly. I've signed up for a lot of legislators' email lists, and I was getting emails on a daily basis. Well, here's how you properly wash your hands. Make sure you've got hand sanitizer around. Not a single one of them talked about, I cannot tell you how terribly angry I am that the governor has violated your constitutional rights, and I'm going to do everything humanly possible to make him pay for it, or to stop him, or anything. Nothing. And what I heard when an assembly person, a friend of mine, who's actually in this race, when we sat down, well, we were told if we did it, we would lose. It was an election year. Well, here's the thing, Ben. I can't think of a better reason to lose than doing the right thing. I can't think of a better reason to lose than defending the Constitution of the United States of America from tyrannical edicts, okay? And here's the other thing. I don't think they would have lost. I think that the people of Wisconsin are smart enough to realize that you can both deal with this brand new pandemic and all of the challenges that it presented and also defend the Constitution, that they are not mutually exclusive. Because I've read the Constitution cover to cover a lot. I've carried it in my pocket since I was 14 years old. And none of them have a caveat at the end that says, unless there's a pandemic, or unless you're really scared, or unless fill in the blank. Shall not be infringed means shall not be infringed. It doesn't say may not be infringed. It doesn't say shouldn't be infringed. Shall not. Shall is a specific exact word, which means you can't do it.
So this was clearly, I mean, I could tell just by listening to you, and I think anyone that's listening could tell as well, you're very passionate about this. Would you say this is the catalyst?
Yes. This is why I'm running. And look, I don't know what God, I think the only thing I can tell you is God intends for me to run in this race. I hope he intends for me to win. We'll find out. I'm going to put my work in and do the things I know I need to do in order to win. But if I don't win, I don't win. And if I do win, all I can say is I'll do 4 years. Right? I don't know that I want to do another term after that. I have no plans past this. But here's where I'm excited. I'm excited because under the new maps, which finally the state Supreme Court had to accept the legislative maps, we are going to maintain our control of both the Assembly and the Senate, almost undoubtedly. Now, we've had a lot of retirements in the Assembly and the Senate, and we'll find out. But we will almost assuredly maintain control of both of them. I think that we're going to win the governor's mansion. I think that it's ours to lose. I don't know how Tony Evers wins. It's possible we could lose, but I think we're going to head into 2023 with a Republican legislature, a Republican governor, and if we send people like me down there, if we get a few more constitutional conservatives with rigid spines who are willing to stand up and do the right thing and say, you know what, the emperor is naked, right? Point out the absurdity of some things and be willing to take hard votes and use the power of persuasion to bring perhaps moderate colleagues along. I think we're going to be able to do some incredible things here in the state of Wisconsin.
What are you guys going to do? Let's say you get elected, and that all comes to fruition. Republican governor. Let's say Adam Jarchow wins, right? Republican attorney general in the House and Senate. Yeah. So who are you guys going to blame when things don't go well?
I will blame us. For what it's worth. I mean, for what it's worth, Adam Jarchow has endorsed me. I've endorsed him. He's a friend. And there are three things that I'd like. Well, I'll answer your specific question. We have to blame ourselves. We have to be willing to own the consequences of our decisions.
I'm sorry, you're running for office? Like, I don't hear those words very often.
And that's a problem. Of course, that's a problem. I mean, that's what makes people hate politics. It's what makes people dislike the process. We have to be willing to own the consequences of our decisions. If we tell the people we're going to do something and then we don't do it, we don't have anybody but ourselves to blame. Okay, now we can explain the process. For instance, currently, you don't have a Republican governor. So the Assembly and the state Senate, the legislature, they can pass any bill you want them to. if the governor overturns it, it doesn't, or vetoes, excuse me, it doesn't matter because we don't have a veto-proof majority in either. Well, I think we do in the Senate, but we don't do in the Assembly. And so, so it is legitimate to explain to some people why we haven't been able to, for instance, election integrity bills. There have been something like 17 of them passed, but they languish on Evers' desk. Here's what I'll tell you that I would like to do. Okay, I have three things that I'm really passionate about, and then a bunch of other things that I think need to happen. But as a core, so let me just share with you my core principle. I have two core principles. One, when I see a problem, I don't think how can government solve it. I think how did government cause it. Okay, it is time for us to shrink government. It is time for us to get government less out of our lives and less out of the free marketplace. It is time to get government to have it constrained to the constitutional limits that were intended in the first place. The second principle I'll share with you is that I think that a government that does the least is a government that does the best. My tagline is limit government, restore liberty. Okay, so those are two principles I will be taking with me to Madison. So for instance, if somebody comes to me with a bill idea, I'll be able to say, well, does this grow government or does it shrink it? If it grows government, my answer is almost assuredly going to be no. I mean, it's just as simple as that.
Sure.
From a policy perspective, one, I think we need universal school choice. Okay, it is beyond time. The average cost to educate a kid in the state of Wisconsin is somewhere around $13,000. Okay, and it depends on where you are. Okay. The average cost with the private school in the state of Wisconsin is, I think, somewhere just under $4,000. I know the private school my kids go to, it doesn't cost me. Sorry, I got to get a drink when I talk this. It doesn't cost me $6,600, but the cost to educate my kid at the private school he goes to, because my son still goes to, it's a private school through 8th grade, is $6,600. Okay, so with universal school choice, you can give parents a better option on where they're going to send. They can send their kid to a school that A, meets the student's learning style better, B, meets the family's belief structure, worldview, things their family cares about. And then third, it saves the taxpayers money. To me, that seems like a win-win-win.
Yeah, so hold on. If you don't mind kind of dumbing this down for me. You said $13,000. That's for public school, right, per year?
Yep,
about.
On average.
And I'm assuming that means taxpayer liability.
Yes.
And then $4,000 for private.
On average.
So that's for the taxpayer. Now, that's not obviously what it would cost. So if I wanted to send my kids to a private, is this a private school? Is that what we're talking? Because I'm really kind of ignorant on
this. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. So the taxpayers don't pay for private school. So taxpayers pay on average $13,000 a year to educate a kid in Wisconsin's public schools. Okay. And again, it's higher in Milwaukee and lower in Polk County.
Okay.
On average in Wisconsin, the tuition cost for a private school, K through 12 school, is $4,000. Now, again, it's going to be $20,000 for the elite school in Madison and $2,000 for the
but $4,000 is the average, and is that taxpayers paying that, or that's just for the home person? Okay, got it. Okay, now that makes more sense. So right now, what is the setup?
So right now, there is school choice in certain areas of Milwaukee, and that's about it. So unless you happen to fall in the right zip code down in southeast Wisconsin, if you want to send your kid to private school, you're going to pay for it out of your own pocket, in addition to your taxes, in addition to your state, your property tax that funds the public school.
Sure.
What I'm suggesting, and I think a number of other candidates, is that there be, and again, I don't have a specifics, right? Because the specifics will be determined by the body.
Sure.
I mean, it's
totally get it.
We'll come up with a plan, and then we'll refine it. But what I'm suggesting in generality, the 30,000-foot approach, is that taxpayer dollars be offered as a voucher or perhaps a tax forgiveness, force parents to be able to pay for the private school or charter school of their choice to send their kid, so that it would no longer be you and your wife, you want to send your kid to private school, you don't have to take that money out of the family's budget. It will come as some sort of tax rebate, tax payment. Somehow the tax dollars that would otherwise go to the public school would instead go to a private school, but at the reduced rate. So I'm not suggesting we make $13,000 available to send to private school.
But help out a little.
I'm suggesting we make $4,000 or whatever the number comes.
And what's the rub on this? What's the other side saying? Or not? Let's say side. Maybe it's I probably shouldn't put that in the category of like
I
Democrats. Maybe
understand.
there's other Republicans who don't agree with this. What's the other side say? Why is that a bad idea?
So, just let me briefly say that the state's constitution mandates that we educate children. Okay, it doesn't say how we have to educate them. So we do have an obligation as the public to make sure that we are using tax dollars to educate kids. What the other side would say, and I would argue that the other side defends the educational industrial complex, that for the most part, those who are vocally in political circles and within the lobbyist corps and whatnot, their goal is to defend the schools themselves or the educators' jobs themselves, not the kids. And I think we saw that during Act 10, right? It wasn't about the kids. It was about the teachers. It was about the paycheck. Not even the teachers. It was about the paycheck. It was about the union. It was about control. And what they would say is that, well, if you do this, there'll be no accountability. There'll be no accountability. How will we know that the education these kids that go to these private schools where they're getting taxpayer dollars are good? And my response is they have parents. The parents' opinion about the education is the only one I care about because they are the parents' children. They're not society's children. They're not the community's children. And so if the parent feels that they're getting what they need out of the school, if the parent feels their kid is getting the education they need, then that's enough, right? And we allow homeschooling now, which is by definition, that's the way homeschooling works. And I homeschooled for 2 years myself. And so that would be their argument is, well, there's no control. Well, my rejoinder is, well, that's actually the point. I don't want the government in control of my children. I don't want the government in control of what they learn and how they learn. Right? We've identified we have an obligation to make sure that they learn, but that obligation does not mean we have to do it through government schools.
Got it.
So that's one of the. Then they would also talk about what do you do with those students with special needs, those students that a private school, certainly maybe a high-end private school isn't going to take. I would argue that I think that the marketplace will come up with solutions to that. I think that you'll probably see schools run by people who their heart is for those special needs students. And so you'd end up with a school that's tailored to just special needs students. What an amazing blessing that would be. Again, my wife is a third grade teacher, and she's got that incredibly high functioning, never a problem kid. And she's also got that kid who's a broken kid from a broken home. And she has to try and find out in 6.5 hours a day how to educate both of those students to the same level, to treat them both the same.
I don't know how they do it.
They don't. They can't. What happens is the student who needs special care is going to receive the lion's share of a teacher's attention. That's just the way it works. Yeah. And not because the teacher wants to, not because, but simply because they have to, right? And it's not the kid's fault. To be very clear here, children are truly the innocents in our society. And so it's for those children. It's because of those children that I think we need to do this universal school choice. Because I'll tell you, Ben, the last 2 years, watching the destruction of the educational outcomes of millions of children here in Wisconsin and across the country, as we allowed the fear of an unknown pandemic basically allow us to throw our children under the bus, was evil. It was just unconscionable. Watching my wife come home and share the stories, not with names, obviously, but just share stories of students who have never been on a Zoom call or haven't met any of the metrics. And here's the thing. Your kids are probably going to be fine. My kids were probably fine because they went home to a loving 2-parent household or a loving 1-parent household, but where you had a parent who had the time and the ability and the resources to make sure that a kid still learned even under the pandemic scenario. What the kids we really, really, I don't know any other way to put it, that we screwed over last year with our COVID policies in our schools were the kids that life had already dealt a difficult hand. They'd already dealt them, an offsuit, 6 and 8, right? And asked them to come, do you want to double down on that blackjack, right? Those were the kids that we damaged through our COVID policies. And what was so bizarre to me was listening to the educational industrial complex talking about the teachers. They need to protect the teachers and how, and it wasn't about the kids. It's just not about the kids for those folks. And so it broke my heart. It breaks my heart listening to stories of children struggling through our schools. Yeah. So we've got to give better options.
And when you look at it through that filter, it kind of changes a lot.
Yes.
Thinking of the kids, not the teachers. And I'm assuming you're not saying that it's It's not that we're not thinking about the teachers, but maybe priority number one needs to be kids first.
Absolutely. Look, schools are for the kids, not for the teachers.
Sure.
Teachers are a function of having kids in the school.
Yeah, we're almost up against our time, and I had a whole bunch I want to get to, but I do want to talk about one thing. So on your website, which is votewestrate.com, vote, WESTRATE, westrate.com, you have a list of priorities as bullet pointed. And I want to ask you, because you kind of explained something to me, and it was about the schools and vouchers, which I didn't really know. I still don't feel like I have a full grasp on how that works. But there's another one in here that everybody talks about it.
Right.
I don't really understand it. In one of your bullet points, under your priorities, it says, eliminate CRT. Schools should teach young people how to think, not what to think. I'm not kidding. I know this is the critical race theory, and I don't know if that's the actual acronym or that's what people call it. I don't know what this is, and I feel like I should, and I'm embarrassed because it's been talked about for like a year or two now, and I still don't know what it is. What is that?
Right. Well, so CRT, it has become kind of a catch-all for kind of a liberal progressive mindset as regards teaching race relations in the schools. Think of it kind of like Kleenex, right? That we use the word Kleenex even though tissues may be from Sam's Club, right?
Sure.
So, but it is an actual theory that started in the 70s and just recently has kind of gained ground, I think, since the George Floyd era. And part of it is to basically that white people are oppressors simply as a function of being white. I mean, that from our birth, we're part of a systemic system that oppresses people of color. And it's just automatically kind of our fault. We are automatically part of the oppressive system for no other reason than the color of our skin. And here's the problem, Ben, is I can think of no more racist a concept than that. I mean, it's no less racist to say you're an oppressor just because you're white than to say someone else is anything just because they are fill in the blank. I mean, when you suggest that one's skin color defines them, that one's skin color and ethnicity makes them fill in the blank, it is racist at its core. And so there is an element of effort within the liberal progressive left in our schools to have this concept, this idea of
that
systemic
concept,
racism,
what you had just explained, that concept being taught to.
Yes, to kids. Okay, and we've seen it in books that are in the classrooms. We've seen it in classroom instruction. Some in Wisconsin, again, nibbling around the edges, and it varies in degrees depending on where you are. Again, every school district is basically an autonomous zone, right? Yeah. And each state has some standards,
sure.
And you've got a federal Department of Education that shouldn't exist. But it's that generalized idea that America is a nation built upon systemic racism and that our systems themselves are inherently racist. And because our systems are inherently racist, the systems themselves have to make adjustments to account for the inherent racism. And that's what we taught. And what I think is absurd about it is I think the only way we had been making great strides. We have made great strides in racial relations in this nation. I think the moment we're going to truly defeat racism is when we stop pointing out our differences in skin color or in appearance or in whatever, as if those define us. So one of the kind of theories I've proposed is you and I have similarities because of where we live, because of where we're from. Mm-hmm. I guarantee you that I have more in common with an African American who grew up in Eau Claire, Wisconsin and lives here now than I do with a white dude from Louisiana. Across the board. Our geography defines us as much as anything, right? Not our skin color. And so the more we point out arbitrary and capricious differences, right? You're born black, you're born white, just because you were born that way. It doesn't define you, right? We are defined by our choices, by our beliefs, by who we hang out with, who we don't hang out with, what we choose to do with ourselves, both recreational and for work. Like, we are defined by so much, but not by our skin color.
Out of curiosity, from what you know or what you have heard, the CRT, if that is being taught, is that to high school or is this to younger ages, elementary and middle school?
It's literally from the ground up.
All right,
And
because
those
I
who
actually wouldn't have a problem with that. I mean, honestly, I really have no opinion about this yet because I'm actually just learning about it.
sure,
But in a high school, in a certain class, I think that's a great topic to have. Like this
100%.
conversation we're having right now, I think that should be a discussion and part of a class or a curriculum. I think that'd be great having those
100
discussions.
Yes, 100%. And let me be very clear. We need to teach authentic American history. Okay, which there is one of the claims that is made by folks on the other side of this issue that is accurate is that the victors write the history books,
Mm.
right? And that this was a very, very racist nation for a long time, okay, at its
Yeah.
core. And so a lot of those history books, a lot of those narratives were written by men and women who had a desire to remove the struggles and the successes of Black culture, of persons of color, okay? We need to teach that authentically from the ground up. I
Hmm.
have no problem with that. And again, my brother is a history professor. My mother was a history teacher. I love history, true, authentic history. That being said, the conversation we just had should be in a sophomore, junior, senior level class, civics
Yeah,
class,
that'd be good.
a American history class, virtually any. I think it's great. That's critical thinking. It's debate. I mean, there's so many lessons that can be
Yeah,
learned through this
right. Yeah.
conversation in trying to understand others. Let me be very clear. I am a white middle class dude from Eau Claire, Wisconsin. I don't know what it's like to be being a Black American. Okay, I don't know what it's like to be stopped for no other reason than the color of my skin. If that
Yep.
happens, I don't.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it does happen. It has happened.
Yeah. I can't
It's
empathize. Like you and I
right.
can't empathize. We could try to
100%.
sympathize, but we can't empathize. We've never been there.
Exactly. And that's the sympathize part. And that's why conversations are necessary. It's why we
Yep.
need to be able to have legitimate conversations and debate and dialogue where we treat one another as humans that deserving of respect. Even if we don't agree, we should be able to have a discussion and a debate
Yeah.
and disagree without being disagreeable. All of that being said, to teach an 8-year-old kid that he is inherently racist because he's white and a black 8-year-old Black child that he is inherently oppressed because he's Black is racist at its core and should not happen.
There's a lot of people I don't like, and it's not because they have a D or an R next to the name or the color of skin. They're just jerks.
right,
That's it. Like
right.
you're an idiot or you're a jerk. I'm sorry. I just don't like you. I don't want to hang out with you any further.
I have one standard for friendship. Don't be a jerk. That's it. You can be a Democrat, a liberal, other than a Bears fan. No.
Oh, snap. Talk about managing your expectations. Well, we could talk all day, but we're already past our time here. What else do you want to make sure that you tell everyone that is listening? Most people watch these shows not live because, they're actually working for a living.
Right.
What message do you want to give everyone that is listening to this?
Just the primary is August 9th. So far, there's no Democrat in this race. I would love to have your vote if you're a primary voter.
How many primary opponents do you have?
I have two. There are
Two.
two other individuals in the race. Look, again, if you believe that government should be limited in order to maximize liberty, I'm your guy. And if you believe that we need to have men and women who are going to have courage of convictions and stand up for the truth, even if it costs them something in Madison, then I'm your guy. Two other main issues, obviously back the blue, and I believe in transformative conversations about law enforcement. How do we make it so that we can get more men and women into uniform and out on the streets? And how can we also reform it so we're not building more prisons, but instead locking up those violent offenders who really do need to be in prison?
Yeah,
and then finally,
hold on, Joanne, you are spot on right there. They're taught it from their home. How do you fix homes?
Well,
because
how do
some
you fix
parents
homes?
just suck, right?
Yes,
They just absolutely do. I'm sorry, and I'm not perfect, and I'm not the greatest, but my goodness, this all starts at home.
100%. But to Joanne's point, they shouldn't be taught it at school, right? I mean, we need to teach it. We need to not teach it at home, but we also need to not teach it
Should
at
they
school.
teach religion, Christianity at school?
Not in public schools.
Sure.
No, they should teach the history of faiths, right? I mean, including Islam and Buddhism.
Sure, sure.
At a certain level, right? Look, if you're under high
Your
school,
brain can actually process that stuff.
Yes. If you're under the age of 13 or 14, how about we teach you how to read? How do we teach you how to do math? How about we teach you science and history and geography? Right. Goodness knows there's enough there, right? And then finally, I just want to say that transformative tax reform is one of my issues. One thing I would love to see us figure out how to do in this state is you reach an age where you stop paying property tax. There should be a point in your life where you do not have to come up with a nut every month to the government just to live in your home. The bleeding should stop at some point. And this comes from, I had a 100-year-old neighbor. She hadn't driven in 30 years. Her great-great-grandchildren, the ones going to school, and she's still paying $400 a month in property tax for the home she lives in. There's a point at which the bleeding should stop.
Interesting. We're going to have you back on.
Love to do it. Anytime.
And get more into that. And again, there's more things on here. Your priorities, people can see these at votewestrate.com. Some of your bullet points: 100% pro-life, pro-liberty, and pro-Second Amendment. Next bullet point was protect our communities, empower parents, ensure honest elections, eliminate CRT, overhaul the tax code, shrink government. Whole bunch of stuff on there. Go check it out. Brian, it was an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
And I really appreciate you taking the time. And I'm sorry, we could talk about this stuff forever. So thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Thanks. Have a good weekend.
Special thank you to our guest today, Brian Westrate, who is currently running to be the next state senator for Wisconsin's 23rd Senate District. For DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden saying thank you for watching, and as always, have a blessed day.